Hey guys, Ben here from Velflex. Now I'm going to talk about fleece today. We're coming into that winter cooler period when people start pulling out the jumpers and the jackets and things like that. And we're getting lots of questions, particularly around fleece. Now guys, when we talk about fleece, like we're talking about that sort of jumper, that looser sort of weave, right? Or fleece can be actually the short piled sort of like fluffy sort of feel fabric. Sometimes polyesters and things like that, right? So guys, I'm going to show you what I would be doing if I was pressing fleece, because there's a little bit more of a trick to it. The most important thing is making sure that the transfer is really pressed into the actual garment itself and not just sitting on top. Especially if you've got a very short pile fleece, you could press onto that. Longer pile fleece, no. And I'm going to say because of the sort of the pile, the way that it moves, it makes transfers very susceptible to sort of almost be picked off and fall off. If you're going onto the longer sort of fleecy piled sort of shirt, using a solid logo or something like an Ultra 3D as a badge would be the only option. What we've got here, guys, is this is a fleecy hoodie here, okay? And on the outside, it's nice fleece on the inside, no problems at all there. But on the outside, you can kind of see it's like a reasonably loose sort of knitted sort of fleece, okay guys? So it's got some good stretch to it, got some good movement. What we want to make sure is that when we're heat pressing the transfer, we're pressing it right down into the grooves. We're going to see the fibers of this garment coming through the actual garment itself, through the transfer itself, which shows me that the transfer is going to be pushed right into that weave to give it the most amount of strength for the longevity and the washability and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do it. A couple of things. We're looking at this hoodie, fleece hoodie. We always got to look at the garment itself. We've got some zips. So, okay, I've made sure that the zips are at the bottom. Okay, I don't want to be putting them under the heat press. Okay, I've got a zip at the top as well. So I'm making sure that the zipper is all the way up and it's not under the plate. Again, it's going to hold and take some pressure, but also you run the risk of scratching your top plate and things like that. Cool. Okay, what else am I looking for? I'm feeling for seams and things like that. Down here, this zipper is actually quite thick. Okay, so it's going to hold a bit of the pressure up, but I'm not too concerned about it because it's down the very bottom of the plate, and I'm going to be putting the transfer on this front of the shirt. I'm going to put it up here as well. So I'm quite a distance away from that area down the back. Down here, there's a little bit of a seam, but I'm not too concerned about that. It's not very thick either, okay? All I've got to make sure is I've got a bit of a seam here. I've got a zipper through the middle, okay? So I'm going to lose a little bit of pressure from these things. So I'm going to make sure that the reading on my pressure on this plate is going to be a bit higher to compensate, just to make sure that I get good pressure where I'm going to put this transfer. And it's this transfer here that I'm going to be pressing on. So what we've got, guys, we've got some bigger letters and we've also got some smaller letters and things like that. And we're going to make sure that that presses in so we get a good washability in the future. Now, first off, before we press that on, we want to prep our fabric. Now, we want to make sure, one, that the zipper doesn't melt under the top plate. So we're just going to do a quick little test and make sure. We're also going to make sure that our pressure is right. So just make sure zips are all off. Excellent, very good. I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to lock it in. Okay, I'm getting a reading of 6. Okay, that's as low as I'd want to go. And I'm just going to give that a few seconds. Look, make sure the zipper is fine. Excellent, good. So this zipper here is literally making contact with the top plate, but I'm not getting any disforming or anything like that. It's not melting. So this particular zipper, I have no concerns around making direct contact with the top plate. Okay, so I just wanted to check that as well. Some zippers will melt, okay, so you've got to be careful of that, but a lot of the zippers that we find in our garments are actually totally fine to be pressed under the top plate. You make sure you do a test before you go pressing. If you see any sort of melting, that sort of thing, you're going to have to put something like some fabric over the top, or you're going to use something so that you can build the area pressing up so that that zipper doesn't make contact. In this particular case, totally fine, and I'm happy for it to be under the press. Cool, all right, so I've just done a test, make sure the zipper doesn't melt. All my other little zips are off, excellent. I'm happy with the pressure. So now what we've done is we've pre-pressed the fabric so that we've put some good heat into it, got the moisture out of it, that sort of thing. I'm now going to place my transfer down, and I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to bring it down just a smidge. Now, what I'm also considering, guys, when we've got hoodies and things like that, how is this going to be worn, right? So most people have it down, they're going to have that fold it over like this. You want to make sure that any logo that you're putting on isn't covered up by somebody wearing it sort of unzipped at the top, right? So having a look at my arm placement right there, I'm really happy with that. I'll do my zip back up to make sure it's not under the plate. Here we go. Perfect. Okay. So what we've got now, I'm going to do the press. Now, what I'm wanting to do is do an initial press, okay? I'm then going to let it cool before I peel. And the reason I'm going to let it cool is I want that glue to be hard as possible to allow me to peel it and so that I don't lose any letters. And then I'm going to put a bit of fabric over the top and give it a second press. It's the second press with the fabric over the top that's going to allow the transfer to push right into the fabric, and that's where the magic's going to happen, okay? So here, we're going to do the first press, and I'm just going to do a 6-second press, okay? So I'm going to let this count down, and I'm going to stop it there, okay? Now, I'm just going to give my cloth here, I'm going to give this a little bit of a push just to make sure it's pushing in, okay? Cool. Make sure that we got plenty of heat. I did. You know what, and I'm actually happy to give that a hot peel because it was coming off so easily. But if you wanted to, you could wait for that to be much colder and then peel it off cool, okay? Because then once it's cold, your glue is really bonded in nice and strongly. This is obviously, of course, Ultra Color Max, okay? So that's been pressed. Now, here's where the magic happens. If you have a look though, really close, you'll see that the transfer is perfectly smooth, okay? And it's perfectly smooth because it's been attached to that plastic, right? This plastic here doesn't allow the transfer to let go and take the shape of the fabric. It keeps the shape of the plastic that it's attached to, which is perfectly straight. What we want though is we want to see this transfer pushed right into that. So to do that, once we've removed the plastic, put a bit of fabric over the top, and this fabric allows it to push it into the actual garment itself. Cool. I'm now going to do a 10-second press because we've got obviously the t-shirt fabric that we've got to get through, which is the cotton, and making sure that you get plenty of heat in there. Cool. There we go, and it's popped up. Now if we have a bit of a closer look, and you can slightly see it, which is good, is we're starting to see that texture come through of the actual garment itself. Okay, you can see it through around here as well. And that tells me that the actual transfer has started, it's pushed right in, and it's taken that shape of the actual loose weave of the fleece. Guys, for us, that tells me we've really melted the glue, we've melted the transfer enough to take that shape of the fabric. It's really pushed in. That's an excellent press, and I know that that's going to wash and wash and wash. What we want to make sure of, guys, 24 hours before we stretch transfers and things like that. It does take 24 hours for the plasticizers to go off in the adhesive. So we don't wash any garments within 24 hours of pressing, and also try not to stretch them or anything like that. Let the glue do its work. Plasticize is hard and that sort of thing, and in 24 hours it's as tough as it's going to be, able to be stretched and washed as you need to. Cool, guys. Any other questions around pressing fleeces or anything like that, reach out to us, get onto the website, shoot us an email, give us a call.